Perfectionism is often seen as a positive trait that increases your chances of success, but it can lead to self-defeating thoughts or behaviours that make it harder to achieve goals. It may also cause stress, anxiety, depression, and other mental health issues. A lot of people strive for perfection out of feelings of inadequacy or failure. What's going on, guys? If you're somebody who follows me, then you'll be able to see and notice that I am not in my studio. I've actually come for a quick trip to the UK. Well, I say quick trip for 3 months to the UK. Not been back for a long time. I'm currently in quarantine. 1 more week to go, and then I'll be spending some time with my family, which I'm very much looking forward to. Hence the different surroundings. If you are new to the channel, then please hit that subscribe button, especially if you're into personal development. Let's get into the episode then. Today we're going to be talking about perfectionism, and then I'll be sharing my tips to help with this really frustrating behaviour, and something that I've suffered with and still do at times, and I need to kind of have a word with myself. But anyway, let's get into it. Most people want to achieve success, but working hard to reach your goals does not always indicate perfectionist behaviour. People who are perfectionists typically believe that nothing they do is worthwhile unless it's perfect. Instead of being proud of their progress, learning, or hard work, they might constantly compare their work to the work of others or fixate on achieving flawless output. Even when people with perfectionist traits get their desired results, they may still be unsatisfied. They may feel that if they truly were perfect, they would not have to work so hard to achieve their goals. And I can tell you this from my own experience. Even if you take this now as an example, I progressed my work in my videos and I had lighting from a studio back at home in India, but now I'm obviously on travels, I'm in quarantine, I'm in a different location, I don't have my lights, I don't have my fancy equipment to improve the lighting. I'm not a professional photographer or videographer, so what you see is kind of the best I could do. I've got a huge conservatory there which lets loads of light in, which is great, but it also, the sun keeps popping in and out, so it's difficult. So the reason I'm telling you this is I'm not quite happy with the way that this video looks, but at the end of the day, is it the end of the world? No. Is it going to give the same? Are you still going to get the same impact? Well, if you listen to what I'm saying, then yes, you will. Now, if you're just more visuals and you're here just to look at my face under a spotlight, then no, you won't. But that's generally not the reason most people come here. Matt Plummer, founder of Zavana, an online coaching platform to help workers be more productive, said, "A lot of perfectionist tendencies are rooted in fear and insecurity. Many perfectionists worry that if they let go of their meticulousness and conscientiousness, it will hurt their performance and standing. And so they cling to their perfectionism even when it's counterproductive." Alice Boyes, a former clinical psychologist and author of The Healthy Mind and the Anxiety Toolkit, said, "Reining in your perfectionist tendencies is not as hard as it sounds. It's about rechanneling a strength of yours rather than aiming for a lower goal. Your aim is to take some of the pressure off yourself." Now, of course, that's easier said than done. But the fact remains, if you genuinely want to be a high achiever, you're bound to do some things imperfectly. Here are some ideas of how to let go of your fondness of that perfectionism. See the big picture. Matt Plummer explains, as any perfectionist will tell you, being perfect isn't easy. Your diligence takes a lot of effort, and your attention to detail is incredibly time consuming. Now, of course, as a perfectionist, you're never going to aim for merely adequate, nor should you. But you must also recognise the opportunity against cost and time. Ask yourself, am I using my time wisely? Am I being productive? Focus on maximising the impact of your work. You can spend an extra 3 hours making a beautiful presentation, but that does not improve the impact, or it might not improve the impact to your client or your organization. Alice Boys said, shift your mindset. You're going to be less perfect about some things so you can concentrate on what's important. If you're continuing to tinker on an assignment that most others would consider complete, try to recognize that. Just getting it done is a decent goal. There's a point of diminishing returns when it comes to sweating the small stuff and nitpicking, niggling details. Adjust your standards. Managing your perfectionism also requires you to calibrate your standards. For example, you're grinding out an important memo for your organization. Show your efforts to a colleague or supervisor early in the process. You may discover it's already good enough, and that task you thought could take 10 hours could actually only take 5. Don't be shy or embarrassed. It's your first draft. Just tell them, this is my first draft. And even if you need to continue to work on it, the feedback you receive is going to help you improve. Then try creating a checklist. The pursuit of perfection is a bit like wandering on an aimless journey. You keep walking and walking, but you're not sure that you're getting any closer to your destination. Now, similarly, a perfectionist is always going to want to keep working, but the end result is rarely satisfying. So rather than grind in search of this never-ending goal of perfection, create a simple checklist for each task. For instance, you're working on an important client pitch. The perfectionist in you, if you're like me, might worry over the font choice and every semicolon. But with a checklist that reminds you to confirm you spelled things correctly and to eliminate basic editing errors. You needn't endlessly slog. You're following a process with discrete and measurable goals. And once you've ticked off those items on your list, you're done. Break the cycle of overthinking. Many perfectionists have a tendency to think over things way too much, repetitively mulling over a thought or problem without ever coming to a resolution. It's actually related to anxiety. People who think over things too much tend to be less forgiving of themselves. It's unhealthy and it's unproductive. Don't confuse overthinking with problem solving. Instead, look for ways to disrupt the cycle. Identify your triggers. The first step in conquering this habit is to learn to recognize when you're overthinking. Figure out what sets you off. Make note of the situation, where you are, the time of the day, and who's around you. Find your consistent patterns, then think about ways you might steer clear of or control these factors. Don't trust your first reaction. If you're dwelling on a past event, such as an interaction with a colleague, be cautious. You might not have an accurate read of the situation. When you overthink, you tend to focus on all the bad things. So you can't trust what your overthinking mind is then telling you. Try hard to get perspective and give yourself time and distance before taking action. You might be blowing everything out of proportion. I've done it shitloads of times and I'm sure you have as well. Alright, so next we've got seek a diversion. Distractions are useful. Do something that occupies the mind but that's also tedious and doesn't induce anxiety, such as filling out an expense report. Often spending just 10 minutes on a mundane but practical task like that kind of breaks the chain and keeps you from spinning your wheels. Think positive. Overthinking leads to avoidance of certain tasks. There's a feeling of, if I can't do it perfectly, I won't bother. To combat this idea, reflect on times in your past when you tried something new. Think about the successes you've had. By reminding yourself of the pathways that led to your accomplishments, you'll be able to see that you achieved a meaningful outcome despite not being 100% most of the time. This helps you learn from your experiences. If I look back at everything that I've ever achieved, a lot of that wasn't perfect. Look back at your own, you'll find that most of what you do isn't actually perfect. Things that you're actually proud of as well. Get perspective. You might find it helpful to talk to someone about your tendencies. That person could be a boss who's willing to engage with you emotionally, a friend, sibling, mentor, or spouse. Be honest and open. And tell this person that you're working on getting better. Say, I give you permission to let me know if I'm being too fussy or high maintenance. Make it clear that you want to hear how you come across. Say, I may get defensive, but I promise to think about what you say. And be sure to make good on that pledge. Monitor your progress. As you're working on moderating your perfectionist tendencies, undertake a weekly review in which you reflect on your progress. Try to get some psychological distance and ask yourself, was there anything I avoided this week due to the fear of making a mistake? Were there any instances where my perfectionism was not worth it? Were there any times this week when I took action, even when I felt uncertain, and I ended up moving things forward? Your objective is to learn where perfectionism has a positive impact and where it does not. Remember, you're not fundamentally changing course, rather you're redirecting your personality. So, a quick summary of the do's and the don'ts. Learn to recognise the point of diminishing returns when you're aiming to complete a task perfectly. Sometimes just getting it done is a worthy goal. Reflect on your progress. Identify examples of when you successfully moderated your perfectionist tendencies. Calibrate your standards. Oftentimes when you're writing or saying doesn't have to be the final word, it just has to contribute something useful. And let's look at the don'ts before we finish. Don't mistake overthinking for problem solving. When your mind is twisting and turning, seek out distractions to break the cycle. Don't work towards a vague goal of perfection. Create a checklist that ensures you follow a process that's measurable with targets. Don't go it alone. Ask others, a trusted colleague, a friend or mentor for perspective and support. And finally, let's hit the challenge time. The next time you find yourself struggling because you are being too much of a perfectionist, look and measure the impact. Ask yourself, am I using my time wisely? Am I being productive? Focus on maximizing the impact of your work. You can spend an extra 3 hours, as I said earlier, making a nice presentation, but that does not necessarily improve the impact for your client or your organization. Share your challenge experience with us in the YouTube comments or tag us on Instagram using @RosaMindset. That's it for today, everyone. If you have enjoyed the content and haven't already, then I'd appreciate you hitting that subscribe button. And while you're at it, you could give it a little like. And if you'd like to be notified of when new episodes are available, then please click the little notification bell. This has been Richard Rosa. Peace out.